Excellent. Thank you, Ronnie. So, making the transition to Microsoft Edge Chromium. It has a lot of other names, but they are not official, so we're not going to use them today. So why? Well, let's start with me. Who am I? I forgot that I added this one as well. My name is Jörgen Nilsson. I work in Malmo, actually, which was close to Denmark. Now it feels like ages away with closed borders and bridges and everything. But otherwise, it's really close. I try to blog even on Edge stuff as well, like what's new in Edge, Chromium 80 for group policies and stuff like that. So keep track on that as well if you're interested. So why Edge Chromium? Why did Microsoft do this? Well, basically, this is the only thing I have on why, and almost sales-like. So basically, 60% of organizations need more than one browser, and that's more than one browser. And Internet Explorer isn't a browser anymore. It's a legacy must-have, should-die thing that you still have on your machines. Internet Explorer compatibility in the same browser. This is basically the killer feature, at least as our customers see it and as we see it as well. To be able to have the IE compat mode running in a tab instead of a new window. A much better user experience, but we'll come to that later on as well. It's open source. So basically it's the Chromium project. And this is actually interesting because one of the most important questions I get is, well, now that Microsoft updates Chromium, will it only be updated for Patch Tuesday, or how can we expect updates to do? Because Microsoft is very structured in that way, so we hope that will follow Chromium as well. And that's totally wrong, because as it's open source, the Chromium project, they will announce that, oh, here's a security flaw and here's the feature for it, or the fix for it. And Microsoft needs to patch that immediately as well, otherwise you will be in peril as well. So there will be no Patch Tuesday for Edge Chromium. It will follow as fast as it can, basically as Chrome does it. There are a day off and back and forth who's fastest and so on. But basically that's the point. There will be no Patch Tuesday patching of Chromium only if it's by mistake, basically. It's multi-platform, so you can sync through iOS, Mac, Android as well, and not only Windows. And that's a good thing as well. And it's compatible. As it builds on Chromium, hopefully all the problems we had with the modern Edge is gone. So hopefully most sites will work as well. There are some interesting conclusions that because it's built on Chromium, but we'll cover that as well later as well. So this is what we're going to talk about: deployment, configuration, security baselines. That's always fun, and IE mode. That's the most important thing there is from an end user perspective, I think, and also something that will maybe take time to roll out and fix as well. So you need to take that into account. So for deployment, well, this is basically, shouldn't be here at all. It should be grayed out, because basically if you have the latest updates installed, you're good to go. If you don't have the latest updates, you shouldn't be using internet anyway on the machine, so you shouldn't install Edge Chromium either. So, but if you test it in a test lab and you haven't set up patching in your test lab and you deploy an old image, then you won't be able to install Edge because you missed the prereqs. I get that from customers from day and day that, oh, our deployment isn't working. We're testing it out and it doesn't work. And they tested it on a machine that isn't patched, and then it will fail. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well if you test it in an isolated lab with like the RTM ISO or something like that. Otherwise it will fail. So what will happen? This was a big scare with the Edge Chromium, that everyone will be updated at the same time. And Microsoft maybe had a very hard communication that way as well. So everyone was scared and tried to use the blocker toolkit. But that changed like a couple of days before they released it in January. So basically now it's only if we have Pro. For enterprise and education SKUs, they are automatically excluded from automatic updates for Edge Chromium. That's up to you to control when you want to deploy it. And that's a good thing as well, because there's something that we need to fix. Example could be IE site mode list file. So that file actually is in the group policies settings, so all our IE pages are still redirected as a simple one. If we use security baselines, they need to be applied as well. So this is only what will happen. So it won't happen to all your machines automatically, and it won't in the future as well. Microsoft will someday say that, well, now everyone, and this many organization has transitioned to Edge Chromium, and they will hopefully replace the Microsoft Edge modern version, I don't know what it's supposed to be called anymore, in the Windows 10 builds from scratch. But that's not where we are today, as many customers need to transition to this browser instead. There's the link if you need to follow it, and if you have some machines that are actually falling into this, and you will block it or something like that, but you will already have it happen basically. So what about deployment then? Well, this is the cool thing. In Configuration Manager, we get deployment natively, and the same thing we do in Intune. There's a standalone MSI for all the rest of you. And if you don't want to use the built-in feature in Configuration Manager, that's fine. It gives you a shortcut, but it basically doesn't add that much value. I will show what it does actually. So what it do is, well, and we have the same thing in Intune as well. So we can select the stable branch, the dev, and the beta branch if we like. If you want to be on the canary branch, you need to install it manually. It's not included in any of the deployment tools because it's updated so fast. So basically, if we do it through Configuration Manager, it will create everything for us. It will create everything we need to do it. We can control. So if you're an enterprise, you can control which branches of Edge the Chromium that's allowed in your environment as well. All the group policy you set, or MDM's policies, they are for all the branches, so they will apply on beta and dev and everything as well. So the thought here is that you can test them out in parallel, as I have it here. So if you're a dev, or if you're like an application owner, you're responsible for the SAP Web UI or something like that at your company. Then maybe you want to run the beta version as well to test your applications. So we can deploy that in a controlled fashion. We can block which are controlled, and so on and so on. So each version that you have has a GUID, and they are written to the registry under Edge Update Clients. And there's the GUID for, in that case, the dev branch. So that's how they are installed basically, and they will read the same policies as everything. So that's a good thing as well. And we can block it as well if we don't like them to be running it. Side by side, we'll cover that later as well. Basically, Edge will replace all the shortcuts, all your taskbar, all your icons on the desktop, all your created shortcuts, everything to Edge Chromium. If you haven't configured side by side. So the default is that it will replace everything. If you try to run the old Edge, it will close and open Edge Chromium instead. There's a group policy for that, it's called side by side. There's been some issues with it. I think they're working really hard to fix the last ones as well. But that's basically if you have a big environment and you want to test your applications, then you can deploy it side by side. Otherwise, the thought with Edge Stable is that it should just replace everything. And that's also very neat for us. So what does it do when it replaces everything? Basically, it replaces everything. It will replace protocols that are default migrated. It will replace, it will hide the Edge. So it actually is still there, but it's hidden from everywhere. And all attempts to launch the old Edge will open the Edge Chromium. It will replace Start Menu. So it does all the work for you. There are some caveats, of course, that if we deploy like a control start menu, we will still have to fix that. I've seen this in rare cases as well, where I have like my Edge, I have my shortcut in Edge to the service desk application. But when I upgrade it, this is what I have afterwards. So there are some rare cases as well if you use mandatory start menus or something like that. So we need to take that into account as well. But I have that in a list in the end as well. Same if you import the default start menu layout during OS deployment. It's time to update that default start menu as well, because it will take there's a small window when a new user logs on before all the shortcuts are replaced, basically. So there's a small window of opportunity to do something wrong there. Otherwise, it works fine as well. File associations, of course, same thing, right? If you control file associations with group policy or Intune in a controlled fashion, of course, you need to redeploy them, because otherwise you will get the famous, an application default has been reset every time you log on to the machine, because that's a bad thing as well. So we need to fix that as well. There's a link for the Microsoft official docs on how to do that as well. So how do we deploy it in Configuration Manager? This is actually quite fun. It actually supports beta, dev, and stable, as we said. It downloads all the content for you. It will not update the content. So it's the version, it's a snapshot in time where you created the deployment and the package. That's the version of the Edge you're deploying on new machines. It will create 2 deployment types for us, x64 and x86. There's no uninstall command, so basically it's point of no return, and it actually configures automatic updates to off, and that wasn't included in the docs to start with. So I hope people who actually tested it out early have realized that they're not getting any updates anymore, because there was no documentation about it or anything at all. Basically, it installs by using a PowerShell script and not the built-in Configuration Manager application model. It just runs a script in the app model. And the reason for that is basically this. It will actually check that. We can see if we can have a look at it as well. If I switch here, I have every window open except for that one, of course. But we should be able to figure that one out pretty fast, I hope. I hope I have some Edge somewhere in here I can show you. I hope, at least. I have so many, that's a problem, I guess. So this is the file structure it will create for you, and it will create a PowerShell script for every deployment as well. And if we edit that script, we can see that it actually sets the update register key to 0. So it will not, it will turn off all the auto updates. So we will have to fix that if we want it still there, if we're using Configuration Manager 1910. So if we want automatic updates, we need to turn that off or on, depending on what we would like. Another problem is that it's signed, but so we need to either support run remote signed or unrestricted, or simply add execution policy bypass to the command line. Otherwise, the deployment will fail as well. But it works really well. It creates a really smart detection method as well, which checks that it's this version you deployed or a later version. So it won't try to reinstall it if you turn on auto update or if you patch it with SCCM. So what have they fixed in technical preview then? We like technical previews. That's the most fun thing we have to play around with. Basically, it adds the Edge icon to the application as well. So if we select stable, we'll get the stable icon, and if we select dev, we'll get the dev icon, and that's really cool as well. And they also actually listen to us as well. So we will have an option to allow Edge to automatically update as well. So if we want to have it to automatically update, we can do that. And so that will hopefully be fixed in the next release of Configuration Manager as well. So we can have these options as well. And that's great. And when it comes to patching, yeah, I'm not sure if we want to patch using or update it using Configuration Manager. That's a discussion you can have for I don't know how long. And I would say it's from customer to customer because we have the updates here, so we can just approve and we can do ADRs, and we have both the dev and beta and stable channel, so we can easily update it afterwards. For me, it's like it's up to you. There's organizations out there which have, especially if you have small branch offices in South America, Asia, you have really low bandwidth. And I don't know, the Edge updates, every update is like 100 megabytes or 80 or something like that. And if that's a problem for your WAN or your internet connection in those countries, maybe it's a good idea to patch it with Configuration Manager. Some environments need total change control as well, so they know which version is used and all that stuff. That's also, then you also need to do it. Otherwise, I think you're going to an automatic update cadence on a thing like a browser, which is very keen on being used by malicious people, especially as it builds on the Chromium. So if there's a hole in Google Chrome and the Chromium, then it will apply to Chrome as well. So I would, if you have the possibility, I would do automatic updates. If you have the requirements as we talked about now, I would use Configuration Manager to update it instead. If we deploy it through Edge, or through Intune, basically it's a totally different way of deploying it because we have a built-in wizard and everything. I thought I replaced that picture. Well, never mind. On how we can deploy it. The only thing is it actually doesn't create a package or a content. Basically, it only sets a register value on your machine saying that Edge Updater, the next time it starts, should install this branch on this machine. And then it installs the Edge Updater and launches Edge Updater on the machine. And then the Edge Updater will grab the content directly from Microsoft instead of Intune blobs, and then it will install the version you wanted for Edge. So in this scenario, you will never deploy an old version of Edge Chromium and then wait for it to update. This is evergreen, always on, always updated, latest, greatest, whatever you like to call it. So there's never a scenario where you deploy an old version of Edge on a machine. And that's a really good way of doing it as well. I get why Microsoft didn't do it in the other solution because content-wise and all that discussion as well. Maybe it's a good idea to have an option to do that in Configuration Manager as well. Updates, as we said, you can use WSUS as well. Remember, there's a new product out there. As we're planning to do this presentation live, I was planning to ask how many actually have already deployed at Chromium and how many actually use vSUS and automatic updates, but I don't think a raise of hands will do any good right now. But basically, I think there's something stated somewhere that feature updates is expected to be released every 6 weeks for Edge Chromium. I don't know if that's still true. It was in the beta doc somewhere. Security compliance are shipped as needed, as I said before, and we need to sync the new product. And it works just fine doing it for Configuration Manager. What about configuration then? Group policies. This will be for those who moved to the modern way of doing things, congratulations, because this will be a great, this will be a big catch-up game, if you ask me, especially now when the browser is new as well. Because every new version, major new version of the browser will have new ADMX files with new features and new things to control. What we see is the most popular things to control right now is the first user experience. There's a first wizard run, and also force the user to sync their profile and sync their bookmarks. That can't be controlled either. But the things changed a lot from 79 to 80, and I will show that later on as well. So you really need to do this work, and for people in an managing their environment in the traditional way. Let's be nice and don't say legacy. I mean, where we have everything on-prem. This is a new. This is the next thing that will be as a service. Edge Chromium will update either itself or you will update it through EDR ADRs in Configuration Manager to get the latest version. And with the latest version, there's new things, new dialogues, new things for the end user to use and do, and new things for you to control as well. So we need to play catch up with Edge Chromium as well as we do with Office and everything else that's evergreen or automatically updated. So we need to have control of this. This is one of the things I get a lot of asks about as well, and that's managing profiles. Profile sync let's see. No, I didn't. I will be, but we're recording this. Maybe I should be nice today. You can have as many profiles as you like, basically. Each profile can sync to either a Microsoft account or Azure AD. There's currently no way of syncing to an on-premise location. So we're back to everyone that tried to sync Google Chrome settings before they added the profile PB file in Google Chrome, where you actually get all the settings in one file, which is really small. That's actually a part of the Chromium project, but Microsoft haven't integrated or deployed that in their version of Chromium. I hope they do, because that will give us a good on-premise option as well. For the AD accounts that are used, it's the same kind of encryption that's used for your settings if you use that in Azure AD. If you sync that, so it's encrypted as well. One question I get as well is, well, Jörgen, we have a requirement that it's not allowed to sync my settings or passwords, which shouldn't be synced anyway, to Microsoft accounts, only to Azure AD accounts. How can we control this? And basically, there's no group policy saying that, or no MDM policy saying that you're not allowed to sync to a Microsoft account or an Azure AD account. It's basically either you sync with the Microsoft endpoint service or not. But there is a way of controlling it, and that's using this, where you restrict which accounts that can be used at Microsoft Edge primary accounts. So I can use this group policy and say it's only at SCUGDK accounts that are allowed to sync. Then I can't sync anything else except for those accounts. It's not exactly the thing we want, because if we have consultants working, so it's a bit blunt, but it in theory solves the problem for us right now. So go back to what's new in Edge Chromium 80 from a settings perspective. This is version 80, and this is the dev things that are new in 81. So there's a lot of things. I hope this will calm down, but this is how it looks right now. So we get more options to block potentially unwanted apps using Smart Screen. We have some DNS interception checks. So there are some good things coming as well. But it also means that we need to make sure that we are in control of what happens. There are some new features in beta as well, when it will actually look at the URL you're accessing and prompt you to actually sync or log into that account instead and stuff like that. Maybe we don't want that because we don't have the right licenses. So there's a work to do to keep on top of the settings so we have a smooth end user experience out there. Security baselines. I have 6 minutes left. Let's see if we can do this. Security baselines. Microsoft has now published security baselines both for traditional ones using group policy, but also for Intune as well. And this is great to use this. It's not that, it basically makes sure that you can't turn off Defender Smart Screen prompts, you can't bypass them, turns off flash. But there's also an important thing. There's basically two really important settings. It blocks you from saving passwords. in the browser. The reason for that is that as it's built on Chromium, it's exactly as unsafe as Chromium is. There was a malware out there in January, I think, this year, which actually only did one thing on the machine. It stole all your username and passwords from Chrome, because it's encrypted with the same thing that we can do, the same algorithm and DP API that's used by, so Mimikatz can get these passwords out for you as well. And to quote the creator of Mimikatz, if you save passwords and in username in Chrome, you can just as well use Notepad on the desktop because it's exactly as safe. It also recommends that you block all the extensions. And I know we talked about this in the user group in Denmark as well. And extensions are great. The problem is that as we're using basically it's the same extensions as Chrome uses, but it's in Microsoft Store instead. So the problem we have is basically the same. The problem is twofold. The one is that when you install an extension, you give that extension permission to read, and basically they use the API that's used to read and write and modify everything you browse through. And then we say, well, that's not going to happen. But I'm sorry to say that this happens all the time. This is almost 2 years ago. There's a lot of other examples as well. In this case, it was exactly that. It was a fake ad blocker who actually worked as an ad blocker, and they used they hijacked a lot of search names in the store, so it actually ended up in the top. So it actually got 20 million people to install the ad blocker extension, and what it did was steal all the information about you, and when they were satisfied, they actually turned your machine into a bot as well, just as a top of the line as well. So this happens, and that's why it's included here as well, to block all extension IDs. So basically you have to whitelist the ones that you want the users to be able to install. So I think that's the two most important ones. If you want to do more security baselines, there's more things as well that you can look at. The fact that Edge Chromium doesn't check a CRL if a certificate is revoked or not, because that's not useful in the modern environment. It takes too long, and it's only a soft error, so, and that can be debated as well. So have a look at those settings as well if you have the security requirements. Then we go to IE mode. That's basically the only user feature that I'm going to mention, and that's because it will take tuning from your side. It actually works really, really well. It's integrative, supports IE 11 mode in a new tab or in the same tab. It supports Silverlight, ActiveX controls and everything. The only thing that you must keep in mind that it requires Internet Explorer to be installed on the machine as well. So if you uninstall Internet Explorer, you can't use EE mode either. That would be the absolute best option, so we don't have a user start to use Internet Explorer to browse the internet as well. And Microsoft made an app assure promise as well, that if an app works in IE11, it will work in IE mode. So if it doesn't work, they will help you fix it actually. There are some known problems right now, but from overall it works really well. The reason why I said that you have to do something to enable it, it's because it's turned off by default. And one of the reasons for that is that there's more things we need to do than we did before. So if we still have sites that use the EE site mode list, we can use the same XML file, the enterprise site mode list. It's great that we can use the same file, and it works in many scenarios as well. The reason why it's not on by default is because Microsoft added something called neutral sites to the IE site mode list. So in was it 2 weeks ago? There was almost 3 weeks ago. There was a new version of the enterprise mode site list manager released, which actually will give you the option to flag a neutral site, and that's and that is the reason why you need to turn it off and test it before you roll it out. Because what happens is that if you have a web page, you put in IE mode, and today it opens in IE11, and then if it uses another web page for authentication or single sign-on or something like that, it will just work as you already switched to IE11. But what neutral sites do in IE mode, it actually flags that site to not jump back and forth between Chromium and IE, so that you can access the authentication URL from both browsers, basically, or from both modes, basically. So that's why it's important. You can have different site mode list for Edge Chromium, Edge, and IE11 if you like that as well. So you can add this just so you don't touch your working environment and you only affect the new machines using Edge Chromium instead. So that's fine, and it works really, really well. If I try to go to, I'm not sure if I have it left here anywhere. If I try to go, oh, I have it on my other machine, and I'm 1 minute over as well. If I go to Silverlight, this is a good demo to test IE mode. It's horrible and you need Silverlight installed, but still. If I go to Silverlight webpage for demo, it only says install Silverlight. If I use a browser which doesn't support Silverlight. If I use IE mode, this is the normal mode. If I go to the Silverlight URL here, it will basically just, hopefully, do this, and it will launch. So it didn't work. Why? It worked 5 minutes ago. Oh, never mind. It will actually, oh, I did it wrong way. I need the other URL. I need Microsoft, I need that URL. No, I didn't either. Okay, so we'll skip that. It worked 5 minutes ago. But basically it will work and you only get the IE icon on the tab, and it's a great user experience. But you need to learn what flag neutral sites is and use the new enterprise site mode list manager as well. So to sum this up, start testing it if you haven't already. If you're a lucky organization, if you've got rid of all your IE11 dependencies, it should be really straightforward. If you still have IE, you can start deploying it, and then you can test IE mode afterwards in a slow manner and test your things in a good way. You can still get the new browser out there. As we don't control the major versions anymore, and there are some big breaking changes gonna happen, there's already a page that are starting to fill up on with what's deprecated in the next major version of Edge Chromium and so on. So you need to create your early adopters rings for beta dev. Do you have developers that are really heavy developing? Use canary builds. Updates your start menu, file associations. Create an update strategy as well. Do you have a content problem? Do you want to use config? Do we want to go do it directly from internet and all that discussion as well, so you know why you choose it and how it works. And then create a process, basically. Microsoft will release this version then and then, fine. Then you need to sit down, look at the new settings, group policies, will it affect us, what's deprecated, what's new, and create a process for handling the Chrome life cycle, basically. So that was 3 minutes over time. Any questions?